Good evening. It's Wednesday, September 11th, 2019, and I'll now call this meeting of the Burnsville Economic Development Commission to order. Before we go into our agenda, I would like to welcome our 3 new commissioners to the EDC. So thank you for volunteering your time and serving on this commission. Our first order of business is to adopt the agenda. Do I have any changes or revisions for the agenda for this evening? Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to approve the proposed agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same side. And the motion carries. Second order of business is the approval of the minutes from May 8th, 2019 meeting. Do you have any comments or revisions on that? I'm hearing nothing. Stand for a motion.
A motion we approve the minutes of the May 28th meeting, or May 8th meeting, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same side, and the motion carries. Move to our third agenda item, review and discussion of legislative agenda, and the presenter will be Jenny Faulkner. And leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'm here at least once a year, which is always at your fall meeting, to talk about the legislative agenda. So just a little background, the city adopts a legislative agenda every year, the city council does. They talk about this at usually their October work session, and then they bring in all the legislators, usually in January, just before session starts. And then they share with them what the city's priorities are. Your role on the Economic Development Commission is to provide any input to the city council if they should have any new legislative priorities or change the ones that we already have perhaps. So I just usually give an overview of where we're at. So these priorities that were in your packet were adopted by the council for 2019 and looking for your feedback and input going into 2020. So we have 3 different categories right now. We have the priorities, which are action items. Those are things that the city is actively engaging and talking to legislators about. Then we have supporting position statements. That means if there's a bill that's introduced related to that, we may send a letter, we may go testify. This is where we're at with this as a community. And then there are ones that we just monitor. So just kind of keep an eye on things that are out there. We do have a position on it if it pops up. A lot of those that are on monitor have been on there for a long time, and they just kind of come up maybe in a committee or in a question here or there. But they're good still, I think, to have on the position so we know where we're at if something happens. By the time the legislature's in session, it's kind of hard to take steps back to form your position when the train has already left the station, so to speak. So this is being a little bit more proactive. So as you look at what our priorities are, I'm just going to stick to the ones that are focused on economic development and not walk through all of them. The council will be going through this at length at their October work session. We have 2 priorities, and there are 3 total that the council had for 2019, and 2 of them are related to economic development. One's relating to closure of the freeway landfill and freeway dump properties, and then the other one's related to the Burnsville Center County Road 42 redevelopment. So the closure of freeway landfill and freeway dump is something that the city's been working with the MPCA and Dakota County property owners, potential developers for well over a decade, if not 2. As long as I've been here, we've been engaged in this. So what we do support is that the MPCA and EPA, their efforts to properly close this. There could be some adverse environmental impacts to Burnsville and to the region if it's not closed properly. And then along with that, instead of just closing it the same old way, there's an opportunity perhaps to have some economic development. So rather than kind of put a liner in it, move it, cap it in place, it's going to be there forever, and that's how it will always be. There may be an opportunity to move this waste off-site over to the Burnsville landfill and then fill the hole, and then we have an opportunity for over 100 acres of economic development. So the city's priority first is that it's cleaned up in an environmentally friendly manner, right? So we have drinking water that could be at risk if this is not cleaned up properly. And it's not just Burnsville's drinking water. We sell water to Savage, and could be other cities in the long term. Who knows who our customers will be, but right now they're Savage and Burnsville residents. So that's number 1. Of course, the Minnesota River is impacted by this as well. So that's kind of the first one, and we support tools that could get not only to a closure plan that's environmentally friendly, but like I said, that opens it up for economic development. This is not cheap. Right now, what the MPCA has in the bonding bill is $120 million for next session. So this is not, it's one of the larger requests, I think, that's out there.
Quick question on that. One of the items that was up on that, is it in for the bonding bill, or is that something that was just going to be paid for? I think that had something to do with the length of time that it would take to develop. If it was bonded for, I think it would be undevelopable for a certain
Correct.
extended period of time.
Under, thank you, Brady, under the state constitution, as I've come to understand over the years, when state bonding bills or bonding funds are used, it has to be used for a public purpose. And a public purpose is decidedly 37 and a half years. So when public bonding money is used for a public project, it has to stay in the use of the public for at least 37 and a half years before it can do something else. So, yeah, it extends it a long time, that's for certain.
So we're, I guess, as far as the legislative agenda, then we were hoping that the state would simply pay for it versus bonding for it, I think is the
I think
request, or no?
we are hoping that alternative funding sources be used.
Okay.
Maybe it's a tax on something else. Perhaps there could be some TIF that when there comes to be development that we could throw in to deal with some of that stuff, but other sources. Certainly, there's other players here. It could be the county, it could be the city if we want to pay cash, if we had it. That could be a funding if the state has cash. So there's a lot of moving parts with this and how this could work
Okay.
To cover the cost of $120 million.
to remediate it, correct?
Find outside sourcing to cover, so it doesn't, okay. Just making sure that's, so ultimately, if you could find a business, ideally, that wanted to pay the whole $120 million for the redevelopment because they could see purpose in it, that's ultimately fine, but somewhere breaking that up and getting the.
That's correct, Chris. As long if it's a private redevelopment project, then that could be done immediately with private dollars,
Yeah,
right? But as long as the state's involved and we're using public dollars, and those public dollars happen to be bond
Yeah,
funds.
and so we're trying to avoid that if we can, so we can turn it
Exactly.
into something profitable for the city. Got it.
And something that pays taxes and gets back on the tax rolls to pay the public back for the work to clean it up eventually. Add jobs, some housing opportunities, employment opportunities. So this is, the policy right now is supporting the efforts of the MPCA, having a plan that addresses environmental impacts first, secondarily, deals with economic development and has a variety of tools of funding mechanisms. Yes, Dan?
That 120 million estimate, is that for only remediation and the termination, or or does that include the removal of it, if we did choose to remove the?
Those estimates are from the MPCA, that's their request. And they put together some rough estimates a couple of years ago that had to do with the dig and line option, which is leave it on site, not dig and haul.
Okay, thanks.
So there'll be more coming out, I think, this fall as they get some more information and what that looks like as far as what kind of garbage is in there and timelines for bidding and whatnot. So there's a lot more to come on this one.
Does that include the property, the 120 million, does that include the property across the freeway?
Correct, Al, includes freeway landfill and freeway dump, both those properties. That's a good question. So that's the first one. And I should say the council will be having a meeting on October 29th with the MPCA and myself, and I think Dakota County will be there to talk, give an update on this. If you're interested, you're welcome to attend that public meeting or watch it on TV or catch the tape, because it will get into a lot more of the details if you're not that familiar with it already. Then the second priority statement regarding Burnsville Center, similarly, that the priority, the legislative, so we need special legislation to create a TIF district. So we had a really good TIF training within the last month, and this area does not qualify for a TIF district. Buildings have been properly maintained at the Burnsville Center. It does not meet blight, the definition of blight, substandard building. So in order for us to be able to do any TIF, we need to go to the legislature and ask them to legally consider this a substandard building to meet the blight standards for us to do a redevelopment district. So we went to them early this session, and we were not successful. We plan to go back to them again next year. Actually, work starts in the fall, but it'll be for 2020 session. So again, we're actively engaged on something like this. What we're seeking is use for flexibility for TIF on this one. And then also, having tools on the table will create opportunities for public-private partnerships. So remember, all these properties are privately owned. And so in order for any redevelopment to happen, the property owner and developer need to want to do something. The city can't just go in and make something happen. All we control is the right-of-way and the roads that are around it. We don't actually control the development. We can regulate the zoning, certainly what can go there, and we've opened that up. But without the private sector being on board wanting to do something, we'll be very limited in our tools. And then lastly, what the legislative priority also did support the state, our legislators, to look at new tools that are related to economic development. You talked here, I think, at your last meeting about the public improvement fee. That was something that's been used in other parts of the country. It's I think, almost equivalent to a local tax or an HOA fee that kind of would pay for that in and of itself. But it was decided that's not a good fit for us, would need special legislation for us to do that. So our best opportunity is to go for TIF, special TIF legislation. So I would expect the council would keep these on going forward because they are both so very relevant topics.
Dan, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a question. Was there any key learnings we got from our proposal to the redevelopment plan and why it wasn't accepted by the legislature? Was just any insights?
I think we learned a lot about the process, and one of the things I think we learned is timing matters, because we didn't start until after the session started. And by the time the session started, legislators already kind of have their agenda. They kind of know what they're working on. They're meeting right now. They were meeting last week and the week before to talk about things that are going to come up. And because our plan was adopted later in the year, we didn't have that jump start. So we plan to do that this fall. So hopefully that will help us, and then we will meet with the chair of the tax committee that will hopefully give us some guidance. He had some concerns about our plan, and the feedback that we did get was that we weren't ready. We don't have a plan. Well, we certainly do have a plan, and so maybe our focus will be to articulate that message, and also to get into the decreasing tax base of some of those properties, because that impacts not only the city, but also the county and the state. So by them not doing anything in St. Paul, they're hurting themselves as much as it's hurting us in the county by the decreasing tax base and taxes paid. I think it's down 25 to 30% in the last 2 years. Wow. That's substantial for all
Does that
of us.
include sales tax?
No, just property tax. Well, there's that too. You're absolutely right.
I mean, you don't have Sears there anymore, they're not paying any sales tax.
Right, exactly.
Chris? Hold on, Brady first. Chris had a question.
Is there anyone shopping that site right now, showing interest in developing that site? Is there any private contractors who are saying they want to come in if the city will allow it? Or is there, I guess I'm asking, if we don't do anything, if this doesn't go forward, right? What happens to that land? Does it just continue to stay stagnant where it's at? Or does somebody have the option to come in on their own and make a deal with the current owners and hash out a deal where they can buy it and redevelop it without our involvement at all?
Sure, Commissioner, that would be an ideal scenario, right? Is if the developer comes forward and says, hey, I want to build an office complex on here and a hotel and whatever. That's what we're looking for.
And we don't have anybody currently even looking at that land for use right now, and we're trying to entice somebody to come forth and develop something on that land? Is that why we're pushing this?
I can't say that there aren't interested parties looking at that, because they wouldn't be talking to me, right?
Okay.
They would be talking to the property owner first to see if they're interested in selling.
Okay.
And some of them aren't interested in selling, some of them want to redevelop themselves, right? So, but they have other projects across the country that they're working on. But we do know that once we get special legislation for TIF, that they've told us that moves us up the list, right? And there's 4 major property owners there, right? So you have CBL, which owns the mall and the Dick's Sporting Goods. They are the shopping center. They're in the shopping center business. Then you've got Macy's. It has its own lot and its parking, right? So they're still operating business and doing well here as far as we know. And JCPenney, same thing. They've got their own building. They've got their own business. As far as we know, they're hanging in there and doing okay. So not all the property may be for sale at this time. We know Sears is vacant, and I would say that's what we're focusing on right now. That's more the low-hanging fruit, and they are interested in redeveloping it at some point in time. They are interested in a public-private partnership. So what does that look like? That is the one that we want to work with in the immediate future. And that's what we've heard when we did our Center Village study. Everyone's waiting to see what Seritage does. We hear that time and time again. Before I reinvest or go shopping my property, we need to know what's going to happen with the vacant Sears.
Yeah, and we feel that with the city being involved, the public-private relationship opens up the TIF, and that allows for development to happen faster. And that's why we're interjecting our involvement as a government.
That's part of it. It can help us get the land use that we want. It can help entice development. And it can help us pay for the public infrastructure. You'll recall on that plan, there's a serious proposal to extend Aldrich Avenue on the south side of 42 to open up the back part of that property. That would be a public street. Well, that was tens of millions of dollars. I don't remember the exact amount in the report. Well, we just don't have that sitting around waiting to spend on something. So we could use the tax increment to pay for those types of public improvements, to pay for better crossing over or under County Road 42. So it doesn't, we get to decide when we set up the TIF district and start negotiating with a developer what monies go where and why, that are consistent with your business subsidy policy, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does the shopping center own the Sears building, or is that separate?
Commissioner, no. Sears is owned by a company called Seritage, and Seritage bought most of the land, or I should say, a lot of the land and buildings on many of the Sears sites across the country. So they
Okay.
were a land holding company, but I think before them or while they were going through their bankruptcy process. So
Okay.
they've got a lot of properties there in IREIT, right, based out of New York. They've got a lot of other properties that they're dealing with and trying to do redevelopment. So we're in there, we continue to communicate with them, and they know we're here, they know what our plan is, they're excited for our plan. And as soon as we can get some tools on the table, I think that moves us up their list.
Brady, you got a question?
It looks like in number 3, one of the names has changed as far as those responsible for the initiative. So if that needs to be changed before presenting to the city council when that comes on board, that'd be great.
Number 3 of what, Brady?
Number 3 of the legislative priorities, we've got names listed there and one of them
Oh,
is changed.
of staff people?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I didn't include them here, yeah, the city manager and the clerk's office will update that, thank you.
Okay, yep.
Understood. Okay, so unless you have other new priorities that you think the council should undertake or any additions or changes to these, I'll move on and we can certainly come back to these at the end. Here are the position statements. So these are things that as they arise at the Capitol by others or by legislators, we have a position and we're ready to respond. The first one, and it's a big one, has to do with local control. And there was a lot of this last year at the legislature where it seemed like the authorities that cities had were being pecked at slowly, so we had less and less control over what happens here in our neighborhoods and at City Hall. And so the city's position is that we support a greater access to additional tax revenue sources, that we provide municipal franchise fee authority. Right now, our franchise fees that we do have are used to pay all of our city facilities. Paid for the police expansion, is looking to pay for Fire Station 1 relocation, so those fees have been set aside for facilities. That's important that we are able to keep that. And that we have use and authority over the right-of-way. You may have read a lot about 5G technology that's coming, and there was some legislation enacted a couple years ago that tried to give carte blanche to the cell phone companies to be able to use our right-of-way, your right-of-way, the public's right-of-way, at no cost without any say from cities. So we continue to work through that at the federal level and at the state level, but the point is it's the city's right-of-way to manage on behalf of the public, of the people that live here, the city. And so we want to be protective of what goes in there. And there's costs when you put things in there, because there's a lot of stuff in the right-of-way when you think about it. So it's important that we maintain local control for those types of things. Things that the city council and the city opposes, things that erode local control, things that have local costs without funding mandates. We hear a lot about unfunded mandates that get passed down, and we do have to deal with several of those. Anything that restricts our ability to manage public safety or the use of our right-of-way, and things that restrict our ability to provide for zoning, land use, comprehensive planning, utilities, and transportation planning authority or transit authority. So we'd like to keep those local. And then the other supporting position statements We support statewide massage therapy regulations. Again, I just pulled out the ones that related to business or economic development. Right now, cities can or cannot choose to license massage therapists. So if someone's having issues in one city, they can just go to another city. And it's maybe difficult to do their background checks and see if that's a use or a person or business that a city's okay with having in their jurisdiction. Having statewide regulations, the rules would be the same for everybody in the state. So it protects the customers and the workers from that with the statewide lines instead of city to city to city. Things just kind of get pushed around then. Preservation of our host community grant. We've been getting this grant, Skip, I think 6 years now. We get a little over $400,000 a year. And this grant is in lieu of some things that happened at the landfill and a push to do more recycling and a reduction in host fees to cities. So there's a grant program that cities in the metro area that have MSW landfills are eligible for, and we are one of them. So we've been able to secure grant funds every year for the last 6 years for that. We support economic development tools, use of existing tools, flexibility, creation of new tools. So if something is proposed on the table, we would speak in support of that. And then I included the transportation side of things. How we get to work and get employees to work is important. So we support funding of the Orange Line, funding for MVTA and transit. And certainly a big one to us is maintenance of state right-of-way. You know, sometimes they only get to clean them once a year. We're concerned about how the city looks when our visitors come here, when they come to live here, they come to work here. We've got lots of businesses here that bring people from out of town. We think it's important that 35W and Highway 13 look decent at least, so. Any questions on those before I get into the next one?
Chris?
Why do we support massage therapy? I mean, I get your argument, but in a whole sense, why are we backing a licensing for a business that's otherwise, I mean, above board, you know, everything's going fine? Why massage therapy? Why not all businesses need all special licensing to keep everybody safe? Or, you know, why, it feels like they're getting picked on.
I would say because the state regulates a lot of personal services, right? Nail salons, hair salons, doctors, chiropractors, all those are licensed and regulated by the state.
Yeah.
I think we have had some public safety issues with illicit behavior, right? And then concern about the employees and the employees that live there, that work there, and sex trafficking and whatnot. So we read a lot about this in the newspapers. So I think those are the two concerns. And I think the bigger concern also, like I said, is some cities have regulations, some don't. So it pushes the problem somewhere else. So like alcohol and tobacco are statewide regulations. It's a level playing field. Everyone has access to the same information when they do background checks and whatnot, so.
Sorry, I just feel kind of strongly about this because it feels like it's an opposition on a community of immigrants, largely, these licenses. Massage companies, nail salons, hair salons, places you mentioned, are largely owned by first-generation Americans. And it's another licensing fee, another government thing to fill out that they can fail and lose their business because of it. And you're putting some stereotypes into what goes on there, into justifying why the government needs to have further involvement on these people who are trying super hard anyways.
Mr. Chair, if I could, a couple of years ago when we reviewed some of our massage therapy regulations, we called in the massage therapist owners in the city of Burnsville. And as you say, Commissioner, there are a number of them that are obviously decent businesses run by decent people. Interestingly enough, they support statewide regulations. They actually told us they'd rather have the state do the regulation than city to city. So the people that you want to protect, they told us this is what they want.
Thank you for that reminder. It's been a while. And I would add, these are the cities. These aren't mine. You can talk about it as a group and send your recommendation to the city council. I would just remind the commission of that, so.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to present and take your comments and send them back, so
Right.
they are appreciated.
And thank you.
Yeah. Okay with that,
Yep,
Mr.
yep,
Chair, we'll
we're good.
move on to the next one. Monitoring and tracking positions, like I said, these are ones that we just track and kind of keep an eye on because they do pop up from time to time. First one has to do with statewide property tax. We oppose additional tax classifications and increase in the statewide property tax. Of course, local government, people, I don't know if a lot of people look at their tax statement in depth. In fact, there was a good presentation last night from the finance director on what goes into your taxes, your local taxes. But people do come to the city when they get their tax bill, right? So we catch a lot of the heat and the blame for what goes into someone's tax bill, when really, I think our finance director said last night, we are one of 8 pieces of data that go into that. But we're the front face to the citizens and to our neighbors, so that's important. Our reseller regulations, we oppose restrictions that would limit access to customer data. That's a public safety issue there on stolen goods. And then aggregate mining fee, because we have a quarry in town. Our legislative tracking positions are that we support the statewide establishment of an agreeable host community fee that would entice jurisdictions to be open to mining natural resources. A lot of governmental agencies, municipalities, counties don't like mining. It's a very intensive land use, lots of trucks, lots of dust, so they just don't allow them. So as a way to entice cities to want to allow them, we would be open to having a host fee that's agreeable to those affected by it to help use our natural resources. So I think that's all I have.
Any further discussion or anything we want to recommend to the
I had
city
one.
council?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I'm just full of questions, but I have one other question about the public land use. What would qualify as public land use with the landfill
Okay?
agreement? The state says it has to be public use with alternative power sources given to the city's citizens. Would that qualify as public use? Say a solar company could say they could produce X amount of power for the city that gives back to the people of that community. Could that qualify as a public land use?
Commissioners, in meetings that I have been at where we've talked about that, the answer is no.
Okay.
I think because it's a revenue generating, this sounds very counterintuitive, but because it's generating revenue for somebody or some benefit, and I don't know the whole details around this, but the answer was no. Maybe the solar company benefits, not quite sure if the customers benefit. I don't know the ins and outs of that particular industry, but yeah, coming up with alternative uses, even if they are public, seem to be problematic with the way our Constitution's written.
I think the goal with that is to remediate the pollution problem, whatever it may be, as quickly as possible and return it to the tax rolls with its highest and best use of redevelopment land as quickly as possible. And that would be the largest benefit to the city and the citizens at that point in time, based on previous conversations.
Just see anybody find a nice sweet spot to everybody gets something, you know? Yep.
Anything else? I don't see any strong suggestions for the city council. Doesn't look like we need a motion on this, so Jenny, thanks for your.
No, if you think of any, well, I guess you're deciding as a group, but keep an eye on what the council does, and we'll let you know when the meetings are if you want to stay tuned into this. So thank you for the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 4, our economic development strategic plan update. And presenting will be Regina. And Regina, I'll give you the floor.
Good evening, Commission. So this is an update of July and August. Via email, you received an update of May and June. So when the strategic plan was developed, one of the things that we promised to do with the Economic Development Commission was check in periodically of how we're making strides within the different priority areas. So there's 5 top priority areas, just as a reminder of the council. So I'm going to go one by one and showcase what we've been working on. This is just an informational item, no actions needed. It's just an update. So number 1, ensure sustainability of the Burnsville Center. So in the last couple of months, we've been working hard with the consultant Kimley Horn on a traffic study That will be wrapped up the end of December, beginning of January. I believe there will be check-in opportunity with our Planning Commission and Economic Development Commission between now and then. So you'll have an opportunity to learn about what's going on so far. As far as the traffic study, what that will highlight is, do any improvements need to be made? What could those costs look like for improvements based on that Center Village plan? We've been working with the Burnsville Center on highlighting various events that are hosted at the property. One of the events was a Back to the 80s car show, and that was an event that was held the previous year by an outside group. We learned about this opportunity and asked if we could partner with this group to make it bigger and better. So we coordinated with food trucks and brought food trucks out to the event, again, to make it a bigger, better event for our community and to attract as also a regional destination as well. We had people coming from all over the metro that attended the event, so that was pretty cool to see. Item number 2 is improve the image of the Burnsville School District, ISD 191, and the city. Branding and marketing has been a big part of what we've been doing in the past few months. Started out with hiring our consultant AE2S. That's really led the development of that plan, and it's involved different staff from various areas, our communications department as well as our community development department. But the outreach consisted of being at the Back to the 80s event. We had a presence at Party on the Plaza. We had a survey that was available. We had outreach with students that provided essays about what they loved about Burnsville. So we had about 1,400 target, results or people that we had interacted with throughout that process. And they told us that helped formed our decision on what ultimately the marketing and branding theme for Burnsville should be. So they came up with all these great words and identity, identifiers, and ultimately that came down to a list that was drilled down to 8 topics that were drilled down to 4 topics. So it went in front of focus groups, and then ultimately our city council, and the chosen tagline was "You Belong Here," which we unveiled at our fire muster. So staff was in the parade, different community members were part of a video, which was highlighted at a city council meeting as part of a kickoff. And we'll be using that in various ways. The consultant AE2S will be developing a formal marketing plan so that we can strategically use that throughout in many different ways. We continue to have...
I have a question about
yes.
so this, what is it, AE2s?
AE2S, they're a consultant firm, so...
What are they doing to improve the image of the school district, though? I hear branding and marketing, but what does that have to do with the school?
So as part of the conversations that have been happening, gosh, for the past 6 months or so, we've developed partnership groups. So city staff's involved, our Chamber of Commerce, the school district, and we've been sharing the work that we've been doing so that we can cross-promote various things that we're doing to highlight Burnsville. An example is we'll be at Family Fest, which is going to be held in October at the Burnsville High School. Sponsored by the Chamber, but the city will be there. And the idea is that we'll, as a city, will be able to showcase our new brand image, but then we can also, showcase the school district and other great things that we're doing. So it's something that we're working towards. Do we have a solution that will completely turn the image of the school? No, but we're working towards that. The school district's an entity of their own, so what we're looking at ways that we can partner with them to help boost it, and it is a community-wide effort. And we're doing different things, and you'll see throughout the presentation of ways that we're helping to do that as well.
Okay.
So we have had meetings with the school district staff, the partnership group that I mentioned, but we've also had opportunities to meet with the new superintendent as well to learn what the vision of the school district is. And not only city staff, but our mayor has also had an opportunity to interact as well with Dr. Battle. Item number 3 is continued development of Heart of the City. I'm sure if you've driven down Nicollet or 13, you've seen construction cranes. Maven is the name, the marketing name of the apartment building that the EDA the land that the EDA once owned. That's that 127 unit apartment building with the 2,000 square feet of ground floor at the ground floor retail right outside the steps of the Heart of the City Bus Rapid Transit Station. That's, again, well underway. And then Gallery on the Parkway, that is a Chase real estate property. That's the 109 units that's under construction, kind of tucked away behind CVS. So we're continuing with processing reviews on that as far as building permits and inspections, and those should be opening in 2020, which is exciting. And then the transit-oriented development zoning ordinance is underway. So this will cover areas around the future bus rapid transit stations in Heart of the City, which are set to open in 2021, and then potentially around the Center Village area. What transit-oriented development zoning is, it allows opportunity for increased density, a decrease in parking standards, and a more kind of a mixed-use environment around those future stations. So it almost, if you see the buildings in Heart of the City, the feel that you get when you walk through that very pedestrian-friendly buildings close to property lines, that's the kind of feel that will continue just west of 35W, so around the future, one of the future stations, as well as Heart of the City as well. You'll see more on this. There will be a couple of opportunities where our consultant will be asking for feedback from you. So there's more to come on this. We see this as an attractor for more development, more diverse development within the area.
I just have a quick question, and you just brought up the point, diverse development. So with Maven going up, I'm just trying to get a full scope of what type of housing that's all there right now in that concentration. So I wasn't sure about what Maven, because I think we have senior housing there already, right, just across from Cub, and some on the Cub, but I don't know what kind of housing that is, and then what Maven will be, if you can elaborate.
So next to Cub, there are condominiums, which are all ages, available to all ages. Next to Maven, to the west, is a senior cooperative. Likely what you'll see is higher density multifamily housing. The city can't restrict whether it's senior or whether it's condos or apartments for sale, for lease, but we can say is we would allow higher density housing, which would likely be multifamily housing.
Thank
So
you.
the new apartments by Cub, when will they start, you know?
That's still under an active lawsuit. It has not been finalized. They've appealed to the Supreme Court. Item number 4 is enhance and build awareness around our housing and commercial programs. A couple of you were able to attend a webinar that was highlighting basically Economic Development 101, a great overview of various tools that are available. And I believe the slides were sent out in a packet to the rest of the group that was unable to attend. We had the joint EDC City Council work session on public financing, the tools and policies that we have available here through the city and through the state. And then the City Council received a presentation from the Community Development Authority through Dakota County on the programs that they have available. And there's council support for making changes to our programs and policies to allow for some grant opportunities for housing, housing programs to, I'm drawing a blank, maybe Jenny can help me out. The program that the council wants.
Is it for
to take a-
rehabbing?
Rehab,
Yes.
there we go.
Yes.
Thank you. So they're looking further into that, and there will be more to come as far as staff implementation of that. And then the 5th item is continue the city's position as a regional destination. Skip and I had an opportunity to be a showcase presenter at the Minnesota Shopping Center Association. About 150 people attended that event, and we highlighted the Center Village as kind of our key item and had great interaction with people. Again, trying to familiarize people with Burnsville if they're unaware. I don't know how they could not be aware of Burnsville, but to showcase the great things that we're doing, and then also to bring attention to opportunities that are available around the Burnsville Center. We had a realtor presentation with about 40 Coldwell Banker residential and commercial brokers here at City Hall. We received great feedback from them. They were very interested in the work that we're doing. We highlighted essentially the strategic plan. They were first most interested in hearing a presentation about Center Village because they've been following along in the news, local newspaper, hearing from their clients. But then we asked them, can we present on all the other great things that we're doing in our strategic plan? And that led into some conversation about the school district. And it was actually overwhelmingly positive. I think one person in that whole group had a negative perception about the school district, and all the other people were really the biggest cheerleaders that I've seen in a long time about the school district. Of course, they're in the sales world and want to sell not a property, but they also want to sell the city and the school district as well. So it was great to hear the positive energy that they had and that opportunity for that cross collaboration with them. They were really interested in keeping involved with not only the city, but also continuing connection with the school district. And in fact, on Tuesday, they're presenting to the school district, or the school district's presenting to them, excuse me, about what they're doing and their strategic plan as well. So I'm glad that connection could be made. And then throughout the past couple of months, we've had 44 individual meetings with developers, property owners, whether that's via phone call, email, or in person between Skip and I and other staff in our department. So that's what I have. If there's any other questions or information you'd like, let me know. Otherwise, you'll be receiving another update at future meetings.
Any further discussion? Thanks, Regina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, open to business. Our presenter will be Skip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Little quick history. The Open the Business program has been in Burnsville and Dakota County for about 5 years now. The program is structured that it is a partnership between the cities in Dakota County and the Dakota County CDA. The Dakota County CDA pays half of the consulting fee, and then the 10 cities divide up the other half based on population. The cost to the city of Burnsville is $8,300 a year. This year, we did a 3-year JPA with the Open to Business, so we've locked in our price for the next 3 years at $8,300. What I've done for you is given you a little recap of this year and the prior 2 years on the number of resident clients and business clients that our consultant has worked with. And we're very fortunate that our consultant, Laurie Crow, has been our same consultant for the whole 5 years. So she knows the cities well, she knows the county well, and she's invested a lot of time and effort with the clients. As you can see, it's fairly stable for the first 6 months of the past 3 years. Typically, half of her client base will be residents in Dakota County looking to start a business, and the other half of her client base will be existing businesses that are looking for some help in marketing, strategic planning, financing, whatever. Very often, she will help a business get prepared to go to the bank for additional loans if they want to expand. She'll also help a resident if they want to get a business started to put together their plan, their marketing plan, their financial plan, ask them a lot of questions. As you can imagine, with the startups, sometimes we are looking at client workings that can go on for a year or two before the business gets to a point that it can really start up. I should also say that she is probably equally good at getting a person looking to start a business that doesn't have a good plan to recognize that they do not have a good plan and they don't mortgage their home on a failing business. And then in the last column, those are across the county clients that she has worked with. And again, you can see it has remained relatively stable over the past 3 years. It's been a very good program for us. Because we have a 3-year JPA, it is in next year's budget to fund again. And at this point, Mr. Chair, I would certainly stand for any questions if the commissioners had any questions about the program.
Any questions from the commission?
Is there an example of a business that's now thriving because of this?
Commissioner, I can share some examples with you. I cannot name the businesses, as the agreement is that would stay confidential.
Okay.
There is a business that is located in the Burnsville Center in the food court, that it was a catering business, and our consultant helped it transition into a standalone business. A couple of years ago, she assisted one of our manufacturing businesses in getting some loans from their bank to expand their business. They doubled their employees. She also helped an individual that was looking to go into a unique travel type business about 2 or 3 years ago. She helped that person get that business started up, and that's actually run out of the person's home here in Burnsville.
Good.
If we ever wanted to understand what they do a little bit more and see it, live and in action kind of thing, so that we could potentially introduce other people to the program as an asset, what's the best way to do that?
As far as seeing it live in action, Mr. Commissioner, that would be tough because everything is kept confidential as to who she's working with. We could certainly have Laurie come and address the commission if you'd like, and she can maybe give you some even greater examples of what she does. But again, there's a confidential nature of it that is built into the program.
I think I just I would, I'll say that I think that'd be a good idea. I think this is the second time now I've heard since I've been on this commission about the Open to Business program. It sounds great, sounds intriguing, but I have to admit, I still don't completely get it. So I think that'd be certainly helpful to me if it would be helpful to others.
I think so.
I think that'd be good. From time to time, she does presentations, but also on the, I think, the Dakota County CDA website as well. In the meantime, you could reach out to her if you have something in particular, but having her come in might be great as well.
We can certainly have her come and talk with the commission.
I have one small question. Is there, I see that in 2017, 2019, roughly about 60 some odd clients that did this opportunity, but then is there any insight for like 2018 where it was like almost 20 clients better? Is there any background to that you could share with us?
Yes. In 2016, Laurie, pretty much in a meeting with the cities, begged the cities to do more marketing and advertising of the program. Burnsville, we're fortunate. We have an excellent communications department that does a great job of marketing the Open to Business program. Typically, we will have more clients in Burnsville than any other city. And what you saw in 18 was those marketing efforts finally kicked in.
Oh, okay.
And then unfortunately, I think some of those marketing efforts now have kind of tapered off a little bit in some of the cities. So that's why you kind of saw that spike up and down.
But how much of 19 is included in this? How much of 19, how many months of 19?
6 months. All of these are 6-month figures.
Okay. Wow, 6 months and that increase. That's good.
Anything further? Otherwise, there's no action on this item, and so we'll move on to item agenda number 6, the sale of city-owned land to Lakeland Investments LLC, and Skip, I'll give you the floor back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The land in question is one of 3 properties that the city was deeded by the county after the interchange at 5 and 13 was completed. And they were deeded to the city for the purpose of selling for economic development. The property in question, as you can see, actually has no access. And that's one of the biggest reasons why the property has not sold up until now. The 2 abutting property owners, Lakeland Investments, which is looking to purchase the property, and the owners of the Metro Coin were first approached about whether or not they wanted to buy the property. Lakeland Investments, almost from day one, and the properties went up for sale about 5 years ago, from day one has said that they were interested in buying the property. They, however, did not want to pay the appraised price of $70,000. The city, when we worked with the state and the county, entered into a JPA with the county that stated once we got these properties, we would sell them, and the county would receive 55% of the sale proceeds or the appraisal, whichever was greater. So because of that, we, for the first number of years, did not sell to Lakeland Investments at a lower than appraised price. When it became evident that they're about the only ones who were going to buy this piece of property, city staff and county staff met, and those 2 staffs agreed that we should probably actually amend the JPA and have it state that for these, and there's actually 3 parcels on this piece of property. For these parcels, the 55-45 split would be based on the sale price, which the county adopted that JPA in July. When we sell the land, the city will adopt the amended JPA and sell the land accordingly. That's why you're looking at the land cost a little different. The city also, according to the JPA, can deduct any cost we have in maintaining that property. And that cost right now is about $6,000 that we've amassed. Most of that is cutting the grass each summer, and then some signs and things like that. So sale price would be $45,000 for the property versus the $70,000 appraisal price. The contract will stipulate that the land will be used for either an office or a mixed-use office retail. Our Lakeland Investments also is considering they may demo their existing office building and combine the lots and make one great big office complex. Construction, according to the agreement, construction would have to begin within 10 years of the closing date. That is a much longer construction commencement than we typically have in our agreements. That is in there actually to give Lakeland Investments the opportunity to decide exactly what they do want to do with the parcel, whether it's a combination and/or a building of a second building. And then they would have to complete the construction of the building within 18 months after they start construction. There is clauses in the agreement that will not allow them to resell the property to anyone without city's approval. So we're attempting to prevent kind of a buy it, sit on it for a while, and then spin it off to somebody for a greater price. And if there are any defaults on that contract during the 10 years of its existence, the city would have the right to actually take the land back and resell it to someone else. With that, Mr. Chair, I would certainly stand for any questions. And I should say staff's recommendation is that the EDC recommend that the city approve the land sale.
Sure, I do have a question. So tax property records indicates that there's 2 parcels there's 3 parcels on this land?
3 of them, yeah.
Okay, and then there's a combined estimated value of $140,000 for those parcels.
That's correct.
So the appraisal value was appraised at $70,000?
That's correct.
How was that appraisal come up with if the estimate was $140,000?
When we had those 3 parcels appraised, staff's direction to our appraisal firm was to take into account the fact that there is no access to those parcels. And because of that, that's why the appraisal is lower. For example, the other 2 parcels that we own, those appraisals are actually higher than the county's value, but they have access and are, in many cases, more easily developed.
There seems to be some Dakota County land about 50 feet roughly north of Metro Coin. Is there any chance that could be used for access?
No, Commissioner. I believe that's all easements, and the county's not going to give up the easements for the access to the property.
I'm kind of confused. Are you saying that there's 3 parcels in that square?
Yes.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
you
there's
look on the
2
county
very,
site, there's a
very-
little, looks like a 1-inch parcel or something.
Okay. I like it. I'm glad we can sell it to somebody, let's use it, and let's get something built on there. Sooner the better.
Yeah, if you look, this is one big parcel here, then this is this kind of L shape, backwards L is a parcel, and then this parcel over here is part of it also.
Wow.
And then this little stubby here actually was deeded to Metro Coin Laundry.
Oh,
So, could you explain why they couldn't have access via Metro's access?
Oh, that's very simple, Commissioner. They refused to give it.
They don't have easement then?
We've had numerous I mean,
That's fine.
if you look at the location of
Yeah,
the parcel, it's a fantastic location.
No kidding.
And we've had numerous inquiries about purchasing it, and we have told all inquiries, you're gonna need to get access from either one of the abutting property owners. Neither of the abutting property owners have ever been willing to grant access. Obviously, Lakeland
Right.
Investments wants to buy it, so they would not grant
What
access.
line of work is Lakeland Investment in?
They own the office building.
There's different people in the office building.
Is it multi-tenant?
It's not Lakeland's office.
No, that's why I'm asking what.
Yeah,
Now, Lakeland Investment owns the property of the office, but they own the building and rent out the space to a number of different businesses in there.
when you said that in 10 years, if they try to resell the property, but we have the right to take it back at full price, is that the 70,000 or the price that was sold to
No,
them?
we have a right to take it back for nothing and resell it. If they have any defaults in the agreement during the 10 years the agreement's in effect, we can take the property back. We then go and resell it. When we resell it, we subtract all of our expenses for selling it, and whatever that difference is, that's what would go back to Lakeland Investments. And that is actually a standard in all of our land sale agreements.
Okay.
Outside of them developing the land, what other conditions are you putting in the 10-year agreement?
Just that it will be office or mixed use, or the demo and the construction. Other than that, there are no other requirements.
It was pretty hard for them to violate the terms of that, unless they don't demo it right or something.
Correct. I mean, our biggest fear, Commissioner, is that they would buy it and then resell it, granting someone access.
So you're not allowing that
They can't do that.
Okay, that's a condition.
They can't resell it without city's approval.
for 10 years.
Yes, until
Got
they,
it.
well, if they don't develop in 10 years, that would be a default, and then we would take the
Got it.
land back.
Is there any chance you could reduce the 10 years?
No. Well, we can, but they won't agree to it. So we're not gonna make the sale.
What kind of restrictions are there in the zoning for height of building or anything like that? Because I would imagine Metro Coin wouldn't want a big building built next to it and nobody could see it.
That's a planning question. I don't know.
If I may answer, we've, I believe, removed our restrictions for height within the zoning district where this is located. They would be restricted to setbacks from property lines, how much green space or parking they might need, but height, as long as they can accommodate those other things on the property, they would have the right to build. But we don't have anything like view shed or anything like that. As long as they can make it work, they can proceed.
I think this looks like a good deal. I think realistically, without the adjoining property owners allowing access, there's nobody that we're ever really gonna be able to sell it to. So if one of them wants to purchase it, that's great. The other question I have, is this an actual cash offer? Is the city providing financing for that, or is?
There's no financing.
There's no financing, okay. It's cash offer. That was my only question, to make sure that was the case. Otherwise, I think clearly, this is probably the best result of this particular piece of property after the interchange was created.
Just to be clear, somebody could, Lakeland could put a building on there within 10 years and then grant access and sell that building to someone else after 10 years.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
So, I mean, they could have a long-range plan to do that, but I still think it's the best deal we're gonna get.
Correct, they could sell it before 10 years, they just had to have a building on there within the 10-year time.
They could not sell prior to the expiration of the agreement without city
Okay, so it has to
approval.
go through this whole full 10 years.
But regardless, it would, if there was a building on there, it would now be on the tax rolls and not
Exactly.
owned by
It's still gonna benefit us.
EDA. Yep.
Is there a timeline for them putting a building up there?
10 years.
No, I mean, I get they have 10 years to do it, but have they said that they're gonna do it before 10 years, or?
My guess, Commissioner, is it would be closer to the 10 years.
Yeah, so that's what it's sounding like, that they're gonna hold off as long as they can to that timeline, and then put a building up at the end.
Is there a valuation stipulation on the type of building that can be built? I mean, you clearly have stipulated the use, but
Not at this time, Commissioner.
should we be concerned about that?
We have not in the past in any of our agreements.
So this will be maintained as unimproved property and taxed as that? So that
Yes.
the mill rate would be much lower than a fully developed
Exactly.
piece of property?
Yes, and they would have to cut the grass, as we've been doing, and everything else, until they
But
do.
it's unimproved, it's not a lot of tax dollars, but
Initially, yep.
initially.
We'll get something eventually, one way or the other.
Well, we're not taking care of it, we're getting some money.
Exactly, it's saving us money.
I think I would motion to recommend approval of the land sale as laid out in this document.
I would second.
Got a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same side, and the motion carries. Thank you,
Commissioner.
Skip.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 7, which is election of the officers. I'll be presenting on this. Give you some background here. According to Economic Development Commission policy, it stipulates that each year, the commission will elect members of the office of chair and vice chair. The term of the office is for 1 year, and a member may serve a 3-year term. Any members, regular members on the commission is eligible for being elected to one of these offices. And the current office position holders right now is, the chair is Chris John, who is no longer a part of the EDC. He was reappointed to the Planning Commission. And current vice chair is me, Eric Newman. So, and another note here says Vice Chair Eric Newman is eligible for re-election and has indicated he would be willing to serve as EDC chair if voted accordingly. So I'll now open it up to the floor for any suggestions. We'll start with the chair. Any suggestions on who would reside in that position?
I would nominate Eric Newman as chair of the EDC for the next round.
I'd second it.
I got a motion for Eric Newman as chair. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same side, and the motion carries on chair. So now moving on to vice chair. Looking for any suggestions or on vice chair?
I would nominate Brady Volkstad for vice chair.
Got a motion by Sandy for Brady. Do I have a second or any further?
I
Discussion?
second.
Discussion? Are you interested? Oh.
I do the vice chair job.
I'll nominate Jeff for the vice chair also.
Do you want it?
I'm happy to concede to bring the motion on the floor. Yeah.
Any
Thank you,
other
though.
further nominations for vice chair? Otherwise, we have a motion for Brady and a second for Brady. So we'll move it to the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Same side, and the motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 8. Any updates from staff or Skip?
No updates, Mr. Chair.
All right, it looks like there are no other items to come before us tonight, so looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Got a
Second.
motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same side, and the motion carries. Thank you for tuning in tonight to our Economic Development Commission meeting. Have a good night.